Hey everybody, this is Perch. Question from a reader. Here we go, and this should spawn some good debate inside the comments. We still like to talk about comics, right? I think so. Yeah, yeah, I think so. Anyway, the question goes: Hey Perch, love your show. There's been lots of different iterations of the X-Men, the Justice League, the Avengers, Teen Titans, etc. over the years. But what do you feel is the ideal team for each? Who is the perfect roster for the Avengers and the Justice League? Cool. And then there's more, but let's stop here. So, um, this is a good question, and I think so. A lot of you, by the way, if you've been listening to the show for any length of time, you know that I have a great fondness for the '80s versions of a lot of these teams, particularly on the Marvel side. I thought the X-Men was in a almost perfect state at that point. Everything that led into the Mutant Massacre, I thought that was a really good team. On the Avengers side, I love Captain Marvel, Monica Rambeau. When she was leader of the Avengers, I thought that team was really interesting. A lot of what went on there was really good. However, all that said, I love those comics. I don't think that was the ideal team. And to me, and this is my perspective, I think that the Avengers and the Justice League in particular, they're meant to be the biggest members, the most iconic characters of their respective universes. So therefore, I think the Justice League has to have the trinity of Batman, Wonder Woman, and Superman on it. I think it needs to have Green Lantern. I think it needs to have Flash. I think it needs to have Aquaman. I think that core group of team that is the Justice League in my mind. And I think that you can add a couple of their members. I always felt like the Justice League operated a little bit better when it was bigger. I think that the Justice League can afford to be more than six. I think an 8 to 10 team size can work. You've got to have a good writer. I don't believe the Justice League should have newbies in it. Like I would never have put Naomi on the Justice League. I don't think that's to me. Now I've heard different things on this. There's the value of having the newcomer paired up with the legends, and it therefore gives the newcomer a little bit of a shine and everything else. But I think you should reserve the Avengers and the Justice League for the top tier heroes in each respective universe, and I just leave it there. I think that you can do Young Justice. I think you can do Avengers Academy. I think you can do a lot of things to kind of tie new characters in with the legends. But to me, you've got to do it that way. So I would do that. For the Justice League, my ideal team, it's Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, Flash, Aquaman, and then I think you have a couple others you can throw in there. I think Green Arrow is at times an interesting one, although the other part of it is it's good to have a powerhouse team. You struggle a little bit when you have like a Green Arrow, but then Green Arrow can kind of buddy up with Batman a little bit as somebody who doesn't have the superpowers but has to rely on kind of ingenuity and skill. I think that can work. I think the challenge that DC has always had is they're like, well, you got all dudes and one woman. You really need more women on the team. I hear that. I think this is where Vixen is probably a character I would throw on the Justice League. That now she's relatively new, but she is a powerhouse, and I think you can build her up relatively quickly. In fact, if anything, I think they have had her built up in the past and kind of flubbed it, where they only seem to take her back. One weird thing about Vixen as a character is she's been around forever as a character, and yet when she comes out, the comic writers like seem to feel the need to almost reintroduce her. Like, here's this character you've never heard of before, Vixen. It's like, no, we've all heard of that character before. We know that character well. Why are we reintroducing the character again? It's strange to me, but they always seem to do that with Vixen, and so it always seems like the character never really gets off first base. But that's an option. I've had people at different times argue for Donna Troy. There's a big Donna Troy fandom out there, and this idea that you could put Donna Troy in with Wonder Woman and have kind of that partnership going on. I mean, that's a little bit too of the same kind of thing. And I think Donna Troy is an idealized character for the Titans, personally. But there are other female characters. DC seems to struggle more with female characters that are at that top tier than Marvel does in some odd ways. They have some, definitely. Over on Marvel side for the Avengers, to me, it's the same thing. The Avengers should have Captain America, Iron Man, Thor. I think that's that equivalent trinity, and then I think you build out from there. Now, same problem again. People will say, but all the top characters are not women. But again, I think you can build characters up. I mean, as much as people hate it, Captain Marvel probably belongs on that team, given what you've done with the character and the kind of the powerhouse aspect of it. I still feel like Captain Marvel needs, meaning the Carol version, needs some level of deconstruction. They have to. Uh, the idea of making her this all powerful kind of hero, and then now they realize they wrote themselves into a little bit of a corner by kind of hyping her up as the biggest thing that could possibly exist, and so they're trying to pull it back a little bit, but it's hard because you find yourself reading the comic going, I mean, yeah, look, she's all powerful, can do whatever she wants. Why is she struggling against this character? It's weird. I always felt like when the Avengers tried to mix in, say, like Storm, it was weird. Right now they've got Valkyrie on the team. Jane Foster. I don't know. That kind of to me is the same thing as Donna Troy and Wonder Woman. If you've got Thor and Valkyrie on there, that seems a little strange. Spider Woman worked when it was the New Avengers. That wasn't a bad pick at all. That was kind of interesting to have her on there. I think I do think you can take Monica Rambeau and her Spectrum identity and kind of do more with her. I think you can kind of hype her back up again, and you can get back to. I mean, if I was writing the Avengers right now, what I would try and do is set up a almost idealized version of that kind of mixes the original, which is your Iron Man, your Thor. Maybe you have the Hulk on there too, for that matter. Although he's doing some completely different thing. The Hulk was never a core member of the Avengers, and it was always kind of interesting when they had to. Things are so effed up that you got to go get the Hulk. That could be a good plot point rather than having him regularly on the team. But I think that Scarlet Witch, sure. Vision, Black Panther. I think these are all kind of good. Hawkeye, of course. I think you've got some characters in there. But again, I don't think it's a place to throw brand new characters to try and put them over. I think that the George Perez, Kurt Busiek Avengers was pretty close to perfect for a period of time. And then they did start to tinker with it. They did the Trinary. And I mean, the storylines are fine. Nothing against it. But I think there are moments in that run where you had kind of this iconic moment for the team that I think was pretty powerful. In general, I mean that's what I would do. Now the X-Men, I think you can play around a lot more with, but you do need to have your Storm, your Cyclops. I think that for these teams, it there is an aspect where we know what they are, we know who they are, and if you try and get too cute with the casting, if you try and mix it up too much, all new, all different, it falls a little flat, and I think it does a disservice to the new characters. There are a few people who like the Mark Waid all new, all different, where it had Sam Alexander, Nova, and Miles, and Kamala Khan, Miss Marvel, on the team with Iron Man and Vision. And I think, who else was on that? I'm forgetting now. Who else was on that team? There's somebody else on that team. Anyway, that's kind of the problem. It didn't mesh well. And unfortunately, you read it and it feels like you're trying to make excuses for why, like Sam Alexander belongs on an Avengers team or why Miles belongs there. And that's not really a place you want to put these characters. The characters should, feel confident about where they are. They should feel like they're, doing something impressive and something cool. They should feel like they've earned this spot on the Avengers. And so if you write the comic too much with what are these schlubs doing on here? Then I think that it takes away from the comic and takes away from the characters more than it helps give them a boost. And unfortunately, it's just too tempting for writers to go into, where they're like, "Hey, we've got all these. Look, here's Captain America. Here's Bendis just did this with the Justice League. I mean, here's Superman, here's Batman, here's Wonder, here's Hippolyta. Here's all these major characters, and then Naomi's over there like, oh my goodness, I don't belong with all these superheroes. I don't belong." And then you've got, Batman has to say these goofy things like, "Just remember DuckTales when you get yourself into trouble. Just remember DuckTales; it will calm you right down." This is not me making something up. This was really in the comic if you read it. Or Superman like, "You're the best of all of us. You belong here more than anyone, more than me. In fact," it's like that doesn't help. You've seen this moment too often, where you get the young hero and they're like smiling sheepishly, like, "Oh my goodness, maybe I do belong." It's like, no, you don't though. You don't actually. And the readers all know this, and it's a trope that's been used over and over and over to the point where it doesn't work. They never emerge from that and go, "All right, perfect." Even Kitty Pryde had that in the X-Men. It's like, you belong here with the X-Men. Then, like a few issues later, well, I mean, dozens of issues later, like, man, maybe we should punt you down to the New Mutants instead. And she all bitter about it. But I mean, look at Kitty Pryde. She went into Excalibur. She did all these different comics, all these different versions, and now, yes, she is a more major character in the X-Men. But even there, if you're thinking about iconic X-Men, you wouldn't throw out Kitty Pryde. You'd throw out Storm. You'd throw out Colossus. You'd throw out Wolverine. You'd throw out Cyclops. You'd throw out Jean Grey. You wouldn't put in there Kitty, even though Kitty's been there forever. And the point was that Kitty had lots of those scenes of the, no, you totally belong. You're as good as any of us. And I mean, it just doesn't. The readers don't buy it. Several years later, when you're doing a big relaunch of the comic, and you're like, oh, okay, what should we do here? Who should we have on the team? They never think of those young characters because it's like, well, they're not really established, and so they're stuck. I think it's much better if you can build them up and do something really impressive with them. Give them the chance to shine. Give them the oxygen in order to have their own title rather than cramming them into something else. And you have a much better opportunity to succeed there. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Who is the ultimate or the ideal Avengers team, the ideal Justice League team? Curious to hear what you think. Who are the characters belong? Who does not belong, and why? Interested to hear your thoughts. So let me know in the comments below. And thanks for listening.